Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
And I'm Bob. How's it going?
Welcome to another 2025 ski comparison. We've got some big skis up here. This is basically the 110 category, which, what's the range here?
108 to 112.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
So yeah, skis right around 108 to 112. And we're kind of going slarvy to carvy. But not like, it's not just a linear progression here. You did a good job kind of like creating some segments.
It was kind of a natural thing.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Yeah, and kind of divided into four, I wouldn't say equal, because I think this side from kind of maybe blank over, we start to see some more power. Consistency getting filtered in. But yeah, basically it's like lighter twins, lighter directional, burlier twins, burlier directional. So there's...
Yeah, I'm here for it.
There's some of that going on. But
yeah.
I think it'll kind of help kind of break these up into those different pieces and parts.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. And I feel like there's a couple skis that could potentially move, and when we get to those, we can chat about why or how that could happen.
Well, and then there's like some weird ones, like a Ranger 108 that I didn't really know where to put it, so I just put it in the middle.
Well, yeah, it's in like when you were talking about burlier twins, and then like getting to like Corvus and Ranger.
Yeah.
I personally don't define those as twin tips, so they're like slight outliers, but...
Yeah, I punted on that one.
Fair enough. And we'll get right into it momentarily here. Only other thing I wanted to say is thanks to Matt for filling in for me while I was out getting married.
Yeah, Matt did a great job.
Yeah.
And you did a great job getting married too. So.
Hey, thanks.
Success all around.
I've got this new tool for ski phonics, which doesn't work nearly as well as I was hoping it might. But yeah, I thought Matt did a great job, and it seems like people enjoyed his presence. So that's it. That's all I have to say. We'll get right into the comparison now. Starting with this Elan Playmaker 111. This is a big one, the 188.
A lot of these are big because that's all we had.
This Reckoner 110 behind me is massive.
Yeah.
When I like first came in today and looked at the wall, I was like, wow, that thing's huge. And like that QST Blank is huge too.
Yeah, 194. We got a 192 over here and the M-Pro 108.
That thing's just absurd.
Yeah.
We can talk about that when we get there and its absurdity. But starting off with this Elan Playmaker 111, the very first time I skied the Playmaker 101, I remember thinking just how much fun that platform could be in a wider build, and it didn't take long to get it. We now just have it 1 year later in this Playmaker 111. The recipe is basically exactly the same, so it's a tube-light wood core. We do get those carbon rods, but if you remember in Playmakers, they're just shorter and they're just right underfoot. So it is relatively lightweight construction. Like I said, this thing is kind of massive. It's a 188 and it's 111 underfoot. And it's only 1,925 grams, which when we're looking at narrower all-mountain skis, that's on the heavier side, or at least in the middle. But with these skis, we're going to see some pretty darn heavy skis up here. So really, 1,925 to me is pretty darn lightweight. And they have very similar properties to the Playmaker 101. You know, it's very similar to the 91 as well on paper, but I don't know that it like translates to on snow similarities just because the width is so different. But it does share a lot with the 101. One thing that I've found is just like having the same build but being wider, it just has a little bit more material, a little bit more mass, and I do think that results in a slightly stiffer flex pattern, and I say slightly because it's still relatively soft.
Right.
There are a couple skis up here that are just as soft, if not softer, but I do think it feels a little bit stiffer and a little bit more supportive when you're skiing it. And I had a great day on it. Unfortunately, I don't think this was like it was like a personal run at our ski test. Like I didn't turn any cameras. I think it was the only run I took where I didn't turn any cameras on, but it was on this. It was like first run of day 2 on this, which is probably the most snow we had. And I just had so much fun. It's so surfy. And like for a smaller skier like me, I don't really need more stability. Sometimes I enjoy it, but I didn't find many like limitations on this ski. And it's got that same surf rocker profile. So tons of tip rocker. It's not like crazy splay, but there's a lot of it.
Yeah, that contributes to like that smooth feeling overall.
Yeah. And then similar in the tail, it's just a little bit shorter. I would call it a twin tip. You know, I think all the Playmakers are twin tips, but it's not like symmetrical in its rocker profile or anything. And then a decent amount of camber underfoot. And then this thing's got a 23.5 meter turn radius. And when you take that radius and combine it with the rocker profile this thing has, it is just incredibly surfy.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I mean, if that's what you're looking for in like a soft snow powder ski, you want it to just be like flickable and like feel like you can just turn on a dime. It's so much fun. And then it has like the same kind of freestyle influence as the other Playmakers, the narrower Playmakers. So if you want to land switch or you like slashy turns and stuff like that, Playmaker 111 is going to work really well. And I would say that I think the fact that it has a touch of stability to it is probably the most surprising thing about it. And I do think that separates it just a touch from the 101.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting to see when we'll bring up kind of more on-trail or resort-specific applications for skis on this wall.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that the weight and just overall flex of this takes it further away from that than some other skis that could be better used in an on-trail or resort.
Well, I agree 100%, and I'll take that concept and kind of run with it. We titled this ski or this comparison 110 Freeride Skis. A lot of the skis up here you could just label as powder skis.
Yeah.
Where a lot of them work well in powder. There's, you know, everything up here is wide enough for powder, but some of them don't necessarily feel like powder skis.
Right.
I would say this is one that feels like a freestyle powder ski.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yep, totally.
So I love it. Like the purple.
Love the purple. I think they've done a great job kind of with their whole Playmaker of moving into more fun colors.
Yeah. I don't own one
yet,
but I would like to.
Yeah.
Because I like skis this wide. Here in Vermont, there aren't that many opportunities to use them, but when we do have them, I personally like being on a light flickable ski like this because it helps you kind of wiggle through the trees.
Yeah.
So, fun ski.
Yeah, and this is an interesting conversation too, coming up with this Atomic Bent 110.
Yeah. I mean, similar in a lot of ways, but different too.
Yeah, and like one of the interesting things is, in my experience on these Bent 110s over the years, I struggled more in powder on this, especially like even in the 188. This is a 180. I just, you know, with a more forward mount point and with that softer flex, I just kind of like, I kept going forward.
Yeah, sure.
And like that's really in powder. You really have to kind of decide that you're going to ski it very centrally and kind of let the width and the rocker of the ski do its job. Where I really found that this thing excelled this year was on one of our Atomic Media days, kind of had a spring-like day.
Yep.
Where it was softer snow, like groomers had been cut up. And I actually found a lot more success on this ski in like carving turns on spring snow.
It can be really fun in that capacity.
And that was like my first kind of overwhelmingly positive experience on this 110 was in carving turns on that spring snow.
I like it in deep snow.
Yeah.
Does that count for anything?
It counts for a lot.
Oh,
I think
thanks.
that like I just think that top heavy skiers like myself
I hear you.
are going to struggle a little bit even on the longer length.
Yeah.
1,700 grams. We are built with a lightweight poplar wood core, so very easy to say that this thing could easily be on the other side of that Playmaker in terms of agility and playfulness and just overall quickness.
As you pointed out, we've started with a lot of Playmakers.
This is I think the third Playmaker we've started
keep
with.
It consistent. With starting with Playmakers.
And then a really fun rocker profile. I think this one kind of stands out as being very mustachioed shaped, borrowing a lot of that influence from the Bent Chetler 120, just without that upgraded build for this year. So this ski does return structurally similar. but nice poppy camber underfoot, and then quite a bit of tip and tail rocker. When we kind of line them up like this, when with Jeff and I's view across the wall, you can see where skis have more splay, the tips that stick out more. And this is one of those where there's just a good amount of splay in the tips and in the tails. So very much that playful rocker profile in both tips and tails with a lot of splay. Horizon Tech helps out with that flotation for sure. Just kind of it basically makes a more surface area with the similar amount of width. So pretty interesting how they kind of make it just float and stay up on top of the snow. I don't know if I'm going to be able to read a turn radius on this one. 18 meters here in the 180, and I feel like that's pretty accurate. Being able to access that turn radius is a lot of fun. I find it more fun, like I said, on kind of that softer, less snow style, whether it's spring snow that you're digging into, packed powder, or just a couple inches of snow versus something deep where top-heavy skiers like myself tend to struggle. But overall, it's an extremely satisfying and rewarding ski to be on, especially if you're able to kind of access that performance and really kind of sit in the sweet spot of the ski. I think in deeper snow, people take advantage of that surfy, playful tail. I was never personally able to get that, but
yeah, I would say in deeper snow, and then like this is gonna sound crazy to a lot of you in the park too.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of people are skiing wider skis like this in the park now, and that's like one of the better ones. And yeah, it's like a balance thing and a like experience and like trust of yourself.
Yeah.
Like if you're really good at doing like good nose butters, then like a ski like that becomes like a weapon.
Yeah.
It's like a tool that you use to your advantage. And then like, same in the park, like if you're really good at like butters and presses and like things like that, then this all of a sudden becomes a tool.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're Bob St. Pierre and you don't do those things, then the things that make it a tool also become limitations.
yeah. But this was definitely my best experience on this ski was this past year, just in spring conditions.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like I've always really enjoyed skiing it, but I felt like this past season, whenever I skied it, it felt a little stronger than I remembered, or maybe just like a little quieter. And I actually think these first 3 skis are a great place to start because they're, in a lot of ways, they're very similar.
Yeah.
Like they're all freestyle builds, they're all similar shapes, but you get like a little bit less energetic and a little smoother as you go through them.
Yep.
So I just think it's kind of a fun comparison to start.
Great new graphics, as always.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for this ski.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 100 and the 120 changed for 2025. The 90 or the 85, the 90, and the 110 did not. One would anticipate that they would change someday,
Right.
and maybe they'll change soon, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that 110 is still a great ski.
A lot of purple in those first 3 twins as well. Very interesting kind of.
Yeah, that's true.
This is how they do it these days, I guess.
Good point. Purple is trendy.
Yep.
Next ski up here is a new one. This is the Armada ARV 112. I think this ski is awesome. I think it's like one of those skis that can be slightly surprising. So pretty simple build in here. It's basically an exact reflection of all the narrower ARV skis. So poplar wood core, there's an ash binding insert, and then like that's about it. So it's pretty straightforward for construction. It is starting to tick up a little heavier here. This one's kind of long too. It's a 185, 2100 and say 20 grams. So we are starting to see a little bit heavier, heftier ski, and that definitely translates to on-snow feel with this ARV 112. Is if you like had existing knowledge and formed opinions about what ARV skis are, I pretty much guarantee this would surprise you because it does feel pretty darn smooth.
Yeah.
Like there's some heft to it. So 2120 grams, we'll call it. And then it's not a stiff flex, but like there's some support there. And especially like up here, like that, you can kind of push that a little bit more than we saw in the first two skis, and even more than like we'll see, I'd say here in Reckoner, and arguably more than we'll see in Ripstick 108.
Yeah,
like,
that's kind of an interesting split between our ARV
totally.
and the Ripstick.
Yeah, so just because it's a twin tip, just because it comes from Armada, who's kind of known as more playful, freestyle, park-inspired skis, doesn't mean that it's just a noodle and you're not going to get some stability out of it, which I actually think is really cool. Looking at the shape here, not quite the same length and tip rocker that we saw in Playmaker, but not far behind by any means. A little bit higher camber height, more similar to what we saw in that bent 110 for camber height. And then I actually would say this one's a little bit more symmetrical in its tip to tail rocker profile, at least compared to that Playmaker. So it's an interesting ski because if anything, it's like the shape is a little bit more freestyle inspired than arguably the first two skis we looked at. But then kind of the rest of it it feels pretty stout, which I think is cool. And like the 106 has some of that too, but just like I was saying about Playmaker, the same is true with these ARVs. If you skied 94 and then 100 and then 106 and then 112, they get increasingly more stable.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. And I think this ski has a really, really nice blend of being playful, easy to release the tail edge, you can slash turns and stuff like that. But then if you want to like launch massive cliffs and you're a bigger, powerful skier, you're going to do great. Like Matt Stromecki, he skied this thing a bunch this past season, and he looked like the perfect skier for it.
Yeah.
Because he does all those things, but then he's big, he's 200 pounds, and he needs some supportiveness.
Yeah, and that's what he said. We kind of chatted a little bit about this list as well, and he's like, yeah, this ski fits me better than those other two. Like the Atomic and the Playmaker, that he had more success on this from that kind of bigger, more aggressive standpoint.
Yeah, and I like, if I was choosing an ARV for soft snow for here in Vermont, I would choose the 106, hands down.
Yeah.
Because I don't need like the extra width or the extra stability here. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like it's a very good comparison to that Sender Free 110, which is kind of interesting. There's like more technology in the Sender, and there are some benefits to that, but just their well-roundedness, I think this ski is in a similar spot.
Yeah, and like once we get over here, we can kind of talk about application. Like you're going to see this on a Freeride World Tour that's a little bit more of a freestyle-oriented course, whereas probably won't see an ARV 112.
Yeah, who knows? The other, Jonah Williams skied the Sender Free 110 in the latest slush match.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. So it's like big following in the park. I was just on New Schoolers, clicking through some threads, and literally somebody on New Schoolers was like, I don't care what anybody else says, the Sender 110 Free is the only ski in the world for me.
All
and
right.
honestly, when I was looking at that, I was actually thinking about this ski too, thinking like, I bet we will see a similar following to this ski, and it's new. So
yeah, I think it just gets crowded in the other ARVs. I think it's like in my mind it's a comprehensive lineup, but from like a shopping perspective, like I think there's a lot. Like how do you settle on that ARV?
Considering everything else that they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean
I do think that can be challenging.
Yeah.
And especially given that it's like new.
Right.
Is that people their eyes might just skip over.
Yeah.
So that is a good point.
Moving into kind of the first of our lighter weight directional skis. This is a new Elan Ripstick 108. So we have had I believe we've had all the other new Ripsticks, 88, 96, 102.
I think
so far. So this is the last of the new Ripsticks that we're going to cover. And it does follow the same construction as the other ones. So tube light wood core, carbon rods along the side. And then the bigger story is the unidirectional carbon strips that we see along the edges that run below the core. So taking that carbon away from your foot and putting it closer to the snow increases that energy and precision while keeping it quieter on your feet. It does still have that amphibio rocker profile, so more rocker on the outside edge and more camber on the inside. I always like to think of it as just a very cohesive and smooth and natural feeling ski. And like when you ski the 88, you're like, oh, I love it because it feels natural and smooth and shorter turns and being quick and agile. And then you get on the wider 108 and it's the same thing, only it's just smoother and driftier and more playful. So it's a very natural way of kind of bending these skis individually to get this desired effect. Still pretty light, 1,812 grams, and we just see a more directional shape and style of ski here versus those other 3 purple twin tips that we've had so far. Definitely has, the least amount of tail rocker by far right now, but pretty long and low tip rocker with like minimal splay.
It's like that's pretty similar to the Playmaker.
Yeah.
For tip rocker. Playmaker's a little longer, but it's same concept.
Yeah. And then nice spoony taper shape here as well. So widest parts brought down into the ski really helps with that flotation. Nice camber underfoot and then pretty directional tail. So gonna be more responsive back here, less playful, but also because it's so light and agile and flickable, that's kind of what puts it on that side of the wall, is its ability to be easily steered. And fortunately, we got on this ski a few really good days this year. Brought it out on a powder day. We had this and a Bent Chetler 120 and a Corvus, I think, were kind of the 3 main skis that we were on that day.
There was something else too.
Something else.
4th.
But we had 4 really fun skis on a really fun, 10, 12-inch day.
Yeah.
And going from a Bent Chetler 120 to this 108 was really interesting because, you lost some of that bounce and total surfiness. But this thing actually handled the deeper snow and the crud a lot better than I thought.
Oh, yeah.
Similar to your Playmaker discussion of it being a little bit stiffer than the narrower versions, I think other than the 88, this is a more stiff version of the Ripstick skis. They are able to thin the profile with the lack of vapor tips and the addition of a flax layer in there. So it is flexible, but I found this more supportive than I was expecting. And really did a nice job of staying above the snow and then feeling that energy out of the tail. You could really get some good rebound and feedback out of this ski. Whereas, if you're on a Playmaker, it's gonna push through and push out. This tail is a little bit more responsive and just feels more energetic. So for a more directional skier like myself, this 108's a better fit for me than a 111, especially I think as the snow kind of gets chopped up and cut up, not pure powder anymore. That's when you're feeling like the longer carbon tubes come into play and just that slightly more burly construction with the extra carbon in the ski.
Yeah.
So
Could see it being like a great daily driver Alta ski for a directional skier.
Yeah, and especially if you like lighter skis and don't want to work too hard.
Yeah.
I'd say you can be lazy on this thing and not get punished for anything at all, and it's a very satisfying and rewarding experience, especially kind of getting that energy out of the tail and feeling that rebound. So
another one that I got to ski during our ski test, and
right.
I did film it.
Yep.
And I followed you. We were on a run together, which didn't happen too much at the ski test.
No.
But we skied waterfall, and then went over and did the riverbed.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is it called? It's called
riverbed.
Is it called riverbed?
Yes.
Is it an actual trail? I never really know.
It's not
is
on
it
the map.
not on the map?
No.
There's no sign?
No
At
sign.
the top? Off
Nope.
chin clip?
Nothing.
You know what I'm talking about? Huh. Anyways, there's a riverbed over there somewhere. And it's a little bit bobsled tracky. And especially the day that we were in there, it was like very bobsled tracky. And some of these skis would have been a nightmare in that scenario. And I like really enjoyed these because they were super easy to flick around. And like, I truly mean flick. Because it wasn't like making like rhythmic turns. It's like, oh shoot, I got to slow down a tiny bit because I'm going to hit that.
Yeah.
And then like right after that, you have to make like another like weird movement that's not like necessarily intuitive. And I thought these skis did it really well. They were like easy to put where you needed them, but then like you were saying, they're not just like slarvy. They don't just kind of keep going, which was helpful in that scenario.
Yeah, hard to be aggressive on these skis, though, I will say. Like, if you're really looking to put some speed on it and charge through stuff, like, that's why they're over there and not over here with, like, a Declivity 108. It's just it's a different feel. It's a different flex. You know, they are meant to be, they are meant to flex.
I mean, really, like, the only ski that I would associate with any level of aggressiveness so far is the ARV.
Yeah.
And that continues until like here.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the next ski that I would ever use the word aggressive to describe the appropriate skier for it. And then once we get here, then like everything else you can be pretty darn aggressive on.
Yeah.
Next ski is this Kastle ZX108. Fun ski, pretty simple and straightforward for Kastle. I kind of always like to point that out about the ZX skis. It's like sort of a bummer that we don't have Paragon up here. That was in the mid 100.
Even though they're the same.
They're like, right. So like it is fun kind of comparing this ski to Paragon because they essentially share the same footprint. And ZX, just as we've talked about, has no metal. Poplar and ash?
And beech.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Poplar and beech. I didn't want to look at any notes, and forgive me for getting that slightly wrong. So pretty simplistic build here, and then we get that Holotech. Pretty sure this is Holotech 2.0. I get mixed up.
I think so, yeah.
On the different, because new ones are 3.0. I think this is 2.0.
The new ones are even like Evo.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're next gen.
So it's an interesting ski because it's not a consistent flex pattern throughout the ski. Underfoot and through the tail, there's some supportiveness to it. It's certainly not stiff. Like there's tons of skis up here that are stiffer. But then the shovel is nice and soft. So it has like a really cool directional freeride-y loose feel.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from that tip. I think a lot of it comes from kind of like the overall tip to tail taper as well. And they're not light. So 1,850 grams. This is the, what am I at?
79.
Are you sure?
179? Yep. Or 178. It's that top number, 179.
Oh, thank you. I was looking at 17.9, which is also the turn radius. So yeah, it's not like the longest ski up here, but it's not heavy by any means. And then the shape to me is just very interesting. So good amount of tip rocker. They don't need a ton of tip rocker because that softer flex, it's gonna like plane out pretty easily. It's gonna bend even in if you're in soft snow. And then really like almost no tail rocker. So you kind of get that like rudder effect where like the tip is so loose and floaty and you can kind of go anywhere with it, but then you can like really control the end of your turn because there's some supportiveness to the tail. There's a clip that I'll play right now of Colin Moffat at our ski test, skiing these. And every time I watch that clip, which has been a lot, because I manage all those things, it just looks like such a perfect powder ski for that type of skier. And he has like a big race background. He's a coach for MMSC. Like to me, he looks like a ski racer.
Yeah.
And this, to me, looks like the perfect powder ski for a ski racer.
Yeah, I like how this thing finishes a turn. Like for as wide as it is.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
And how floaty it is.
Yeah.
I love how it finishes a turn.
Yeah. I don't really. You know, it just kind of doesn't really like match anything that I like to do on skis.
Yeah.
And a lot of these wider, like more directional skis do. On Ripstick, I feel like I can be more playful. Like the ski feels looser.
Yeah.
And I can like bring a little bit of like new school mentality or park vibes into my skiing. On this, I don't necessarily feel that way, but that's what makes it so good as a directional ski.
And I like to point out the genealogy of this ski as well, as this was the first ZX ski to come out.
Right.
It has since given birth to a ZX115, a 100, and a 92, a ladies Obsidian 92, and all 3 Paragon models.
Yeah.
So like this thing has really kind of spawned a big family tree, which I think is really cool.
It's like the start of like modern Kastle.
Yeah, modern Kastle Freeride Skis.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great point. And you know what's kind of interesting about these is it's a little bit contradictory to what we were saying about ARV and Playmaker, or sorry, ARV and Ripstick, and that holds true to other skis too, where as you go wider, they feel a little bit more stable.
Yeah.
I actually think the ZX skis have like exactly consistent performance across every width.
Yeah, they don't change rocker or taper at all.
No, or feel or flex pattern or like anything.
Yeah.
So like this is basically just a wide ZX100.
Right.
Or the ZX100 is just a narrow ZX108.
Yeah.
So it is like way more even, which, you know, maybe that's a testament to Kastle manufacturing.
Right. They're just very consistent and very practical about things.
Yeah. So kind of interesting to point out.
Yep. Now we're in our yellow phase here. Orange and yellow
orange,
phase.
yellow. I mean, it's seasonally appropriate as we're moving into autumn
fall,
here.
sure.
Yeah. I mean, this Ranger too, that's got some big autumn vibes. I mean, this one's got to take the cake for
fall foliage colors.
Seasonally appropriate fall foliage.
This is DPS Kaizen 112. So this thing came out last year. It is a carryover model for this year. So Kaizen, we get 100, 105, and 112. The 105 is the outlier in that it still uses the longer turn shape, the 18-meter arc, whereas Kaizen 100 and 112 still fall back to the old RP shaping, which is 15-meter. I forget what they call it these days. Rocker. So not resort
powder.
Not resort powder, just rocker. So the big gig here is that they have to shape this ski in this kind of absurd fashion in order to get it to adhere to that 15-meter turn radius. And that kind of does a few things. One is it really hones in on that skier that likes to make very precise and calculated turns in powder. It also kind of eliminates people who are looking for any type of like alternative turn style.
I agree 100%.
Like opening this thing up and letting it run is not really in its DNA.
I have another quick ski test anecdote.
Okay.
So I have a clip that I'll put in right now of Eric Timmerman skiing this ski at our ski test, and he is a longtime ski instructor and like is extremely technical in how he thinks about and approaches skiing. And that looked like the perfect Eric Timmerman powder ski.
Sure.
And I really enjoy those examples of like, this is a ski, that's like the correct skier for this ski. And I just couldn't help but think that in that moment and when I watched that footage back.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important to note because it's not going to be, this isn't something for everyone. I think like the Kaizen 105, even just with that slighter, longer turn radius,
appeal.
Just a broader appeal, but this is very specific. They do use a blend of horizontally laminated wood cores, so poplar and ash, and then we get 2 full sheets of carbon on this ski. So it's the high level build here from DPS, and it really shows in that energy and that rebound that technical skiers really enjoy. Like each and every bit of energy that you put in gets directly translated. And we'll talk about that too when it comes to Core 111 in terms of carbon-powered skis. The main difference is the Core 111 just has more of a traditional shape, profile, and style that's going to enhance that appeal. We do have this binding plate on here, which is usually about 200 grams, so we're at just about 2,200. So I think these are right around 2,000 grams. And like they're on the stiffer side. Like you definitely feel that feedback from that carbon, but you also don't need this ski to be loose because of this.
Yeah, like it just skis so short.
Yeah, this amount of dramatic rocker and then this crazy amount of taper basically balance the lack of flexibility with the ski.
It's like the opposite of like wherever we were talking about. We
Right.
don't need as much tip rocker because the ski is so soft.
Because the ski
Oh,
flexes.
sorry, ZX, yeah.
So it's always interesting to think about how companies go about kind of manufacturing a similar response, but with vastly different construction and shaping protocols. So I always like to think about those things. But when you bring down the widest part of the ski to here, you're starting that turn radius in the very middle of the ski. And then the rocker isn't as dramatic in the tail, but the taper is. So we are still seeing a widest part well dropped into the tail of the ski. So you're really getting an effective edge, in this middle third or so, and that's where the 15-meter turn radius is. So yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting and unique ski. It is not going to be for everyone. If you are, a hard charging directional skier, this isn't going to fit that style.
I think that's fair.
But
yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like this, it doesn't fit me on paper, but I actually end up really enjoying it on snow. I've always enjoyed that 15-meter arc from DPS, and I do like carbon-powered skis. It's just that higher end that you can't quite get. If you want to let it run and hit higher speeds, it's just not really up to that task. But
Yeah.
if you're making kind of those short, energetic, precision-oriented turns, like this is, maybe the Blank is up there with best floater here.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation.
Like this, it just stays out of the snow. Like you can't sink this thing.
No, but is it weird that sometimes I wish I could? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
DPS.
Right.
And this might come across as negative, and I don't mean it that way at all. But DPS skiers are DPS skiers, and they typically ski pretty similarly to each other.
Yeah.
And skis like this work perfectly. I almost just I have spent a lot of time on skis with this shape, thinking about Soul 7 and old RMUs that I skied a ton. But it's I've never really gotten along with that aggressive taper shape.
Yeah.
Because it's I don't know what it's gonna do next. It's always doing something. Where something like this that's just straight and consistent.
Yeah.
I know exactly what it's gonna do.
Well,
and it's probably gonna be really challenging to make a turn because it's kind of hookier and stuff like that. And I've just never really learned to use it to my advantage.
Well, I think that this is the first ski that I would say is compulsory to be in fresh and untracked snow.
Yeah.
That's everything else, pretty much everything else on this list can be used in some type of variation of soft snow. I think that this is kind of the outlier that is nope, it's got to be fresh.
Yeah.
It's got to be untracked.
Yeah.
If there's another track in there,
No, I think
this amount of taper and rocker is going to do something other than you expect.
and that explains it better than I was trying to. Yeah, because you're right. And in perfect untracked snow, you're oh, this makes a lot
Right.
of sense. But yeah, it's anytime you're encountering something different. But there are tons of people that love DPS skis. There are a lot of skis that DPS makes that I really enjoy skiing, and I certainly appreciate the Kaizen 112. It just doesn't really mesh.
Yeah. No,
Which is
I mean,
fine.
and again, it's use case. If you're not
Totally.
in fresh snow, all the time,
Right.
it's not as useful.
Right.
And even the 105 and the 100 in this Kaizen line, they are a lot more useful if you're not in pure powder.
It's why you see so many in Utah.
Yeah.
Such a great Utah ski.
Yep.
So moving on here, this is the new K2 Reckner 110. We've talked about the 102. We had that in kind of the 100 Freeride comparison video. This now takes the place of the 112. And the changes are exactly consistent with the 102. So they've kind of just tweaked the construction a little bit. We don't need to go into extreme detail because I think it happened less on this ski, but the 102 in particular and the previous generation of Reckoners in general, they did have some durability issues. We've seen a fair amount come back a little bit blown up. And K2 certainly didn't like ignore that. They took all that feedback and redesigned these skis with more of a focus on durability. This ski is interesting to me because I do think it could be one of the first skis we talk about. But you put it over here, Bob, and I'm cool with that. I do think it like there's a lot of similarities between Bent 110, Playmaker 111, and Reckoner 110 here. It is an aspen wood core and then a couple different applications of carbon. So we get that carbon spectral braid in here where they're controlling torsional stiffness in different parts of the ski. They keep the tips and tails really loose and then it's a little bit more torsionally stiff underfoot. We also get carbon boost braid, so those are just longitudinal stringers of carbon. And it's not tremendously light, but again, it's important to remember that this is a 191. But this 191 is 2,200 grams. And then similar to the conversation that keeps coming up, these skis do feel like, at least from the 102 to the 110, the 110 just feels a little bit more stout. You get a little bit more material here. And again, it's like not tremendously light, but it is still soft.
I had a hard time kind of going with
figuring out where this
flex
goes
versus weight, and that's the weight kind of put it over here.
Right.
And you know, I put it there, and then I did what you're doing. I picked it up, and I'm like, oh, actually, maybe over there, but yeah. So I'm good either way, but it definitely, like you said, it feels like a more stout version.
It does.
Plus the carbon applications, I think, kind of. Those are my rationales for bringing it closer to the burlier
Well, despite how soft it is and how playful it is, there's some pretty darn good vibration damping in these Reckoners too. And like I said, I'm perfectly fine with it being right here.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can say it's more powerful than an ARV 112.
Yeah, I would.
That's kind of the issue that I keep coming back to, is it could probably just go like right there.
Yeah.
But that's fine. And this one has extreme freestyle influence, which is one of the reasons why I like it so much. So quite a bit of tip rocker up here, very, very high camber height. So you actually get like a nice amount of bounce and pep out of this ski. And then it's like pretty much symmetrical tip and tail rocker. It's not perfectly symmetrical in side cut. My gosh.
There's a sticker on the back that might
No, I
be
got it.
easier to
138, 110, 135.
Yeah, so
it's
very
not
symmetrical.
exactly symmetrical, but it's pretty darn close. And that should be, I mean, really like the thing that you keep in mind. If there's one thing that you're going to remember about the Reckoner 110, it's that it's a wide twin tip. It's basically a wide park ski.
Yeah.
Because it's like so symmetrical and such centered mount points that it's kind of just a wide park ski. But if you want a wide park ski that you can take into soft snow, this is a really, really fun one. There is a wider Reckoner too, if you want to go like extreme width.
Yeah.
But I had a blast on this 110 this year. I own the 112. I have it in like a funny shorter length, and it was always like really playful for me. I think they took everything that was good about the 112 and just enhanced everything about it in the 110. It's maneuverable, it's agile, it's like super, super playful. It's really easy to ski. It like, you know, we talk about skis that are confidence inspiring a lot. And I would say this ski is creativity inspiring.
Yeah.
It wants you to just like do whatever you want to do.
Right, really expand the boundaries.
Exactly, yeah. And for that reason, I really like it. It's also, you know, it's like kind of the antithesis to a Kaizen 112. It's like, it's kind of heavy, pretty straightforward shape, a lot of tail behind you.
Yep.
Good luck. And for people that are used to that, like myself, this feels very intuitive and very fun. So it's all background and expectations.
I think we had a similar conversation with the 102 where I put it more this way on the wall and you wanted to put it more that way.
It's just so playful.
Yeah.
They're just so fun. And like, it's got to be one of the wider tails up here.
I think so. What was the other one I was thinking of? Oh, I don't remember.
Ranger 108's 134.
This one's 133.
But it's like, I think that's an interesting thing to point out.
Yeah.
Is it's so much of a twin tip that you got a lot of tail behind you. But super fun. I really like it. And they did a great job improving the durability. Like I really beat up the Reckoner 102, the 2025.
Yeah.
Like I skied it in the park like 30 days probably and like coached on it a ton and just like beat it up, and there's nothing wrong with it.
No, I think that the Reckoners, the 102 and the 110 specifically, are two of the most improved.
I agree 100%
skis for this year.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't give awards very often, but most improved.
Most improved.
Yeah. And I always liked it.
Yeah.
Especially the 102. It was just hard to like, it was hard to feel great about it because we just saw them break a lot. So great job to K2 for retaining the things that we loved about it, but making it a lot stronger.
Yeah. This is Line Bacon 108. Similar to your kind of take on the Playmaker 111, where you had some personal time on it. This was kind of in my wheelhouse as my personal powder twin tip this year. We had...
Yeah, you skied a bunch.
Yeah, we had the demo here all year, and I don't know, probably 10 days on it or something like that.
Sounds right.
And really a mix of different snow conditions, everything from soft spring snow to kind of one of our deepest days of the year where it didn't snow overnight, but rather started at like 7 in the morning and then snowed all day.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun to take this from as the snow accumulated throughout the day and just being on this 108 playful twin tip and how it handled seeking out fresh lines, how it handled cut up trails, chopped trails, trees. I think this is one of the better tree skis on this wall for sure, mainly because it just blends a flexible nature with a stout underfoot feel.
It captures a lot of that same versatility that we found in Chronic 101.
Yeah, so Chronic, I mean, you could almost say it's an extension of Chronic line, so 94 101 to Bacon 108.
Yeah.
Very similar in terms of feeling and character, you know, especially with blending softer and thinner tips with that kind of more stout underfoot zone here. But another ski that's pretty symmetrical in terms of flex and style. We're at 2,200 grams here. This is the shorter 178. I was on the 185. And,
that's heavier than I would have guessed.
And felt like it was perfect. I mean, well, that's what we say about Chronics too.
Yeah,
you put a Chronic 101 up here and it's 2,100 grams and you're like, what happened to this fun, playful twin tip? But surprisingly, they really they still capture that playfulness.
Yeah, 100%.
Mostly because they're blending of these attributes. So the sidewall ends, the cap begins, and then it gets thinner, 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 all the way to the tip. They use their thin tip technology in both tips and tails, where it's just razor thin at the very ends, and kind of a symmetrical style here of rocker and taper. I don't know if I got measurement, 142, 108, 137.
Yeah, that tail's wider.
And it's like kind of symmetrical enough in nature.
They're two great skis to compare. And then after that, we get into like this different kind of world of twin tips.
Yeah. But I was just very impressed at how this ski held up to, you know, really tighter technical zones, and then just being able to open it up and kind of feel the stability underfoot at speed. You know, once you get going, like, you know, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's okay because it's kind of in that more silent, smooth nature. Really, the flexibility is from where the sidewall ends. So if you can kind of get past that part of it and kind of hook into the middle, you're really getting good performance out of this thing.
Well, and like that like tip flap stuff.
Yeah.
I don't even consider that chatter.
No.
I've seen it like
Yeah.
come through recently in some comments on like, I think they were mostly ski test videos of like a footage of somebody skiing towards the camera and you can see the tips move.
Yep.
In my opinion, and people can have different opinions, that's fine. If you can see that happening, that's like not chatter. Chatter you like kind of can't see because
Right.
it's like super high frequency. So it might look like it's chattering,
Yeah.
but it's not really. It's more just like absorbing things and reacting.
Yeah, it's doing its job.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's
right. It's not a bad thing.
right. When you see like a bike suspension, you see that
Correct.
fork
Correct.
going up and down. It's not like the bike is chattering.
Right.
It's actually absorbing the
Right.
shocks.
Right.
So I think that this ski does that really, really well, and just like kind of that sharper, sharper tip and tail shape really allow this thing to be smooth through the snow. And I think that there's going to be some freestyle influence here.
100%.
There's, just
Yeah.
like we see in the Chronics, there's
Tons of line athletes use it as like backcountry
Yeah.
jump ski and all sorts of things.
yeah, and that's not really my style, but I certainly appreciate this flexible tail. I mean, it's just a lot of fun, and you don't have to work too hard on it. So I think that's what makes this thing stand out in my mind, and I was very happy to have this kind of as my go-to twin tip for soft snow days. But
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's a pretty good one.
yeah,
It goes in your truck a lot.
yeah, it stayed there for a while.
I remember seeing it in your truck a lot. Next ski up here, this one's new for 2025 as well. This is the M-Free 108 from Dynastar. And it is new, but it's also kind of the same. So basically the shape comes back unchanged, at least from what we can discern. And now it gets hybrid core 2.0. What's the Dunder or the
Dunder Infinity 2.0.
yeah?
Yeah,
Was that Ryan Howard?
that was Ryan's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, hybrid core 2.0. It's that kind of joinery technique of the wood core that Matt described really well.
Yep.
Which is really cool. I love that kind of manufacturers are kind of thinking outside the box like that of how can we reduce epoxy and fiberglass use and all that stuff. And then we get that polyurethane. You might not be able to see it on camera, but like holding it, you can kind of see where the PU material is along the edge. And I would say it's largely similar to how it skied before. They kind of just like up the responsiveness a little bit. Kind of the amount of energy you get finishing a turn is slightly better, while they retained the surfiness, which is really what I always liked about it. I always think back to, do you remember like one of the first days skiing this ski? You were following me with the camera and we were skiing like through the grill on like a good like 10-inch day.
Okay.
I had that long purple Arage jacket. I think about
I do remember.
I think
yes.
about that day all the
Yep.
time. And it blew my mind how fun this ski was. And now, fast forward five years later, I think.
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago. And like it has developed such a strong following. Like when we go to Alta, you
Yep.
see like 500 of them.
Yeah.
And now you see a lot of Sender Frees too. It's like funny how the like different brands like you tend to get like followings at different mountains, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason at Alta, there's like a lot of Dynastar, a lot of Rossignol, and a lot of Salomon. That's what I've noticed. But it has just like gained such a strong following, and it's just because it's so well-rounded for this category, for 110 underfoot ski or 108 underfoot ski. It's surfy, it's super maneuverable, it's really fun, but then there's some like trustworthiness and support to it as well. 2,030 grams on our scale here. This is the 178. And, we're starting to like get into, I hate using this term, but I'm going to use it. It's a real ski.
Yeah.
Everything is real. Everything that we've talked
Yeah, I hear
about so
ya.
far is a real ski. But this is like, that's what I mean. It's like the shape is surfy, but the rest of it's like pretty darn stout. Like that's
Yeah.
the stiffest shovel we've looked at so far by far.
Yeah, and we've noticed that in these M-Frees for a while, that like,
Yeah.
wow, they really have some
Yeah.
some zip to them.
And I had the same like experience. The 99 hasn't been updated like this one, but I had basically the same experience with that ski where like first time I skied it, I was like, this is so fun and surfy.
Yeah.
And then the more I skied it, I was like, oh, this is actually, you can kind of push this thing too. So plenty of tip rocker up here. I think that the tip rocker or the rocker in general is like perfectly paired with the taper shape.
Yeah, Dynastar does a great job at that, just kind of seamlessly
Yeah.
blending it.
Yeah. And then perhaps the most camber that we've seen so far, like by height. And
Yeah.
then like I also kind of have to consider the flex too, is it's like, it's hard to decamber it.
Yep.
And you do feel that on snow. That's kind of where you're getting that energy. And then similar tail rocker to tip rocker, maybe a little shorter. And then that similar kind of smooth, slight early taper shape. This one's back to more directional, 138, 108, 128. So a 10 millimeter tip to tail difference, but still definitely a twin tip. So, you know, you can say it's more of a directional twin tip, more of a Freeride twin tip, and it's a lot of fun. It's just like one of those skis that's very well-rounded. And I would say, if anything, for 2025, they've just ticked up the stability a tiny bit.
The other big thing they did was change the sizing.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
The old 108 was kind of lost in the weeds. They had a 182 and a 192.
Yeah.
Those were kind of I forget what the shorter one was, maybe a 176, I'm not sure. But that kind of left people in the lurch, like even people like me.
Yeah.
That like, I like the 182.
Right, but you wanted a little more, but not 192.
But not 192.
Yeah.
So now we're 178, 185.
Yeah.
Which I think that next size up, the 185 is that's gonna kind of be the popular length for a lot of skiers.
Yeah, and like if I was picking up a pair for here in Stowe, I would just get this one.
Yeah.
178, because it's like the flex pattern is supportive enough. You know, it's not like a ski like the Reckoner where I need at least a certain length to trust. And I mean, I've kind of landed as a 180 Playmaker 111 ski, but I'd say I do that with a particular mindset.
Yeah.
Where this thing in 178 is pretty darn supportive.
Yeah, I got to ski that on kind of a firmer day.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to ski the new model in softer snow yet, but on the firmer snow, I was pretty impressed at how smooth and composed it felt.
It's that PU.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Like when you have it up on edge on firmer snow, you don't feel like any vibrations.
Yeah.
Which just translates to like you feel smooth as a skier, and then like everything just starts working a little bit better.
Yeah, and great energy out of that camber. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and I think like it's one of the best so far at blending surfiness and maneuverability from the tip and tail shape with that trustworthiness and responsiveness, and gives it just a very well-rounded feel.
It's also been like probably the most asked for ski that's new for this year.
Yeah.
Like in our comments and stuff like that. Like everyone wants to know about that thing.
I mean, like I was saying, it has earned itself a really strong following.
Yeah.
And it deserves it.
Yep.
And it's kind of cool to see a Dynastar being popular, because for a lot of time their skis, or for a long time now, their skis haven't been like, you don't see a ton of them.
Yeah. And notable, we have 3 Dynastars on this wall.
I know. No longer is line the
No.
most. Hey, send it to Stowe. They did.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, new Black Crow's Corvus. I'll take this tape off and say send to Killington. Yep, new Black Crow's Corvus for this year. And really an interesting ski and kind of an interesting move from Black Crow's, as Corvus was really their first signature ski. And for years it's been kind of straight, strong, burly, stiff, planky, and just hard charging and aggressive. And this is quite a departure from that, although it still retains certainly some of those characteristics, but a vastly different ski. You know,
it's just way more fun.
They could have renamed it something else, and it would have almost made more sense. But basically what they did was they changed up the construction, so we get a poplar and ash wood core here and less metal. So a metal plate underfoot, But, so they're kind of, whereas old Corvus had a longer metal plate, this one has a shorter one, but a denser wood core. But they make it a lot thinner, so it's going to be more flexible. And that's where we've seen kind of the biggest difference is in a more flexible shovel here and a more playful tail. So whereas that older Corvus was, straighter and fully rockered or flat.
It was flat.
Yeah, so we move into a rocker camber rocker profile with the new Corvus, just giving it a different feel overall. 186, we're at 2,039 grams. So again, by Corvus standards, this is lighter. So we're adding mobility, we're adding agility. I would say that we're adding soft, like pure powder flotation. And I think we're taking a little bit of kind of the top end straight line speed that we will see featured in, M-Pro 108. I think if we had old Corvus, it would be between that K2 and the Dynastar over there. This one definitely moves more towards the playful and more free ride side of the spectrum. And I think that's going to make a lot of people very happy.
I mean, it's like a way, way better ski for the vast majority of skiers, period.
Yeah.
Like that old Corvus was just like a big mountain competition ski, basically. Yeah. Like that's even kind of like how they marketed it. And outside of that, it's hard to
sell.
Pick and choose where you wanted to use it.
Yeah.
Where this, being 110 underfoot with a 25-meter radius, and you can ski it in stow in the trees and have a really good time, that's way different than the previous Corvus.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it makes good sense. We still see kind of a flatter profile. I would say that, compared to your Dynastar there that we just talked about, there is considerably less camber with a nice long and gradual tip rocker profile. I think the taper is a big difference too. That widest part's brought down, whereas old Corvus had kind of a distinct lack of taper, spoonier overall.
Yeah.
But here's a vast difference between this and old Corvus. Even though that older one was a little flatter, this one, the rocker starts down here and with considerably more splay. They do have that notch in the tail, just for kind of their signature style there. But if you think about it continuing on and rounding out, we're almost in more twin tip mode here than directional.
Really similar to Ranger that we'll look at next.
Yeah. But really narrow here. This is, I think, another big component is just the narrowness of the very end of the tail. And that's going to allow you to steer the ski really easily through deep snow. Bringing up what you said, skiing in the trees here in Vermont, where it's really tight and technical, this is super helpful. If you have a wide, fluffier tip or tail, it's harder to maneuver in tighter zones. So having that narrower aspect back there in this new Corvus really opens up those tighter areas. So I think it's really interesting what they're getting at here. And I think it just makes a lot of sense. And with that 25-meter turn radius, allowing the skier to really get that thing sideways and be more playful and smeary, I think is great for the Corvus, especially in this range, and definitely keeping it more on that side. We had it out, I forget which ones we skied this back-to-back with, like a Maverick 105. And it was interesting, this thing still turned really well, 25-meter turn radius, because you can flex it and because the camber's not so high, you can really access a shorter turn. It felt like it held up pretty well.
Yeah, if you put a piece of tape over the turn radius and asked me to guess it, I would guess 22.
Yeah. Yeah, really, very, very cool new ski, but not a Corvus as we've known it in the past, which I think is pretty interesting.
I was just going to ask you a question. Do you think it's more similar to either current Atris or previous Atris than it is to the Corvus that it replaces?
Previous Atris, I would say this.
108 underfoot Atris?
This aligns more with that than
I agree.
Previous Corvus.
Yep, I agree.
So
kind of interesting.
Yeah. Maybe they're as a brand, their design team is oh, we don't feel like working that hard to ski a Corvus anymore. Like we
Yeah,
like
it could be.
we want our signature style to be more playful and more accessible.
It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether it's coming from athletes or it's coming from the like actual people that work
Right.
for Black Crows. Somebody said that.
Yeah.
Somebody was like, "This is cool, but can we make it a little easier?" So next ski up here is the Fischer Ranger 108. This is an awesome ski. To me, it like feels. It's kind of like an outlier in the Ranger collection for me, because it feels like so much more ski to me than the 102. Like, I've always thought the Ranger 108 feels pretty darn burly. And maybe that's because I hit a tree when I skied it. And I just have that in my mind still.
Yeah. Everyone has an experience like that on some
Something,
product.
and
it doesn't have
and
to
it
be a
sticks
ski.
with you.
Yeah, it could be like a car that you crashed, and it would just be like, I'm never driving another Nissan again, or whatever it is. You know, it's just there's some mental block to it. But no,
Well,
I hear you.
It's really interesting, and I've probably talked about it plenty of times before, but this wasn't on this graphic. This is just a new graphic for 2025, but maybe I'll put the footage in anyways. That run, we skied like kind of some steeper open stuff on hayride, and I loved it. Like, I was like, this thing is so much fun. Like, you can just like let it fly, and it is completely trustworthy. And then we went into Tres Amigos, and I was on this length, the 185, and I remember thinking like, I have to try really hard.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like enthusiasm for going and like finding little cliff drops and stuff on that run, and I did, and it's not that it doesn't maneuver, it's just that for me, for how agile I feel on the Ranger 102, the 108 does feel like an outlier, and it feels more like that open area, big terrain, go fast ski. So.
I agree. I have a hard time managing this in tighter spots and getting it to turn, and I don't know why.
The reason why I started with that is it can be counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the Ranger line like sequentially, the metal gets progressively shorter, the rocker gets increased, which would suggest that the skis become more playful. And for whatever reason, I feel like it kind of like the 108 is just a little blip in that progression.
Yeah.
It's like more playful, more playful, more playful. 108.
Right.
Powerful. And then like back to playful for 116. So anyways, 185 in length here. This is a poplar and beechwood core with the shaped TI laminate, which is just about that long. Like I was saying, they get shorter and shorter.
Yeah, really just under
the wider skis. Yeah. 2,150 grams. So we are, I don't know that we're going to go, no, cores up there. I was going to say we're not going to go under 2,000. The rest of the wall.
I bet this is close.
It's probably close, yeah. But we're going to start to see some heavier and heavier skis as we see more and more metal being used. Interestingly, it's not like crazy stiff.
Yeah.
So that's always been like a little bit counterintuitive for me as well. Is like I'll have it in my hand, I look at everything about it on paper, flex it, and it kind of feels like it would be more playful than it is. And then you get it on snow, and it just is like pretty chargy.
I mean, say the same thing about the turn radius, 18 meters in this thing, and it does not.
It doesn't really like match.
It feels like a 30-meter turn radius to me.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite, if anything, of Corvus. And then we'll look at that shape and kind of how it can trick you, or at least like, I don't know, it's just an interesting thing because it doesn't really match. I don't think its performance on snow really like perfectly matches the things about it on paper, which is interesting. So good amount of tip rocker up here. Again, like not much camber height, which I think is nice. That retains a little bit of surfiness to it. And then not much tail rocker. And similar to what you were saying about the Corvus, if you just extended that and kept going and rounded it out, it would look to me like a twin tip. Yeah. But it is definitely a directional twin tip, with that kind of directional placement of metal. No one's going to be like center mounting their bindings there because it would just be, it like wouldn't even work. There's like nowhere to put the toe piece anymore. So it is a directional freeride ski, and it's pretty burly. Like, This is another one that if you put it just to the right of Core 111,
Yeah.
I
Before
wouldn't
declivity.
I wouldn't really have like any big thing to point to contradict that.
It's really like it's the turning capability that kept me from keeping it out here. These are all like up until here, you know, like these all turn better than that.
Like carving. Sure.
turns.
Yep.
So
You got to be going fast.
You gotta be
on
going
this
fast.
to make it like feel dynamic in that sense. So I'm with you there. And there is like, it's not catchy. There's definitely like some slarviness to this ski. If anything, like if that's your style and you like to do it going really fast, you'll love this thing. Which I don't know, what's the best comparison so far? Honestly, it could be like ARV 112.
Yeah.
Like ARV 112 and Ranger 108 have more similarities than one might guess.
Yeah.
I would say. I like the new color.
Yeah. I think this is the one that only has, that's the only color in that one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it. Ranger 108. Great ski. Go fast. Take chances. Just maybe don't take chances if there's a tree right in front of you.
Yeah, but no, I think there's that high speed capacity there for sure.
It loves it.
Yeah.
The faster you can go, the more open the terrain, the happier that ski is.
And almost like counterintuitively, this Nordica Unleashed 108 is just like a very clean turning twin tip. Like we've talked about this with the Unleashed 98. Like they don't make twin tips that turn better than Unleashed.
Nope.
And that general feeling that we have about the 98 carries right forward to the 108. Maybe 3 years ago when we first got on this.
Sounds right.
Like
3 or 4.
It just stood right out to us. And Ryan, who skis with us, I think he was on this in like the 191, and he was turning it like he was in a slalom course.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I just remember thinking like, wow, like that's really impressive in general, but on a 108 twin tip, like that is very impressive. So this ski gets a new graphic update for 2025. Same construction as before, so performance wood core of poplar and beech, and then we get their shape Titano laminate on top. What is it called again? I forgot. Sorry, you're taking a sip.
Terrain-specific metal.
Terrain-specific metal, thank you. So it is full width in the shovel. It's full length too. And then in the forebody, it tapers into the middle before going full width underfoot, and then tapers back to the middle again, and then full width in the tail. So there is a contiguous metal laminate in this ski, just leaving the edges a little bit more playful in the forebody and in the back end of the ski. But overall, you really feel that smoothness of the metal really play well against kind of the energy built into the ski. So very consistent flex, 2,014 grams here in the 180. And, you know, we've seen the disappearance of the Enforcer 110. They're really kind of moving everything beyond Enforcer 104 into the Freeride realm from Nordica is now Unleashed, so 108, 114. This is the Freeride realm for Nordica now. And one of the main differences that we see is in the rocker profile and camber length. So in this Unleashed, there's longer camber and more splay in the tips and tails. So the rocker is shortened and the taper is as well. It's brought up more into the ski. So you're getting, in fact, a longer effective edge in the Unleashed 108 than you did in the Enforcer 110, which I think is really interesting.
It's very interesting.
And then
it will forever be interesting.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like the opposite of most design progressions, but it's not bad.
Nope.
And it's like, you know, looking at it among this wall, it's like awesome that they did that because now this is different. And like if that ski was shaped like the Enforcer 110, it would basically just be a sender.
Right.
And it's nice having choices.
Right.
So like it's like it's an interesting progression, but I like it.
And then you'd never know. You'd never, like if you just kind of looked at this wall and no one said anything, you'd never think that this was one of the most comprehensive and capable turners on the wall. It's a 19-meter turn radius in this length, but with that long effective edge, it just feels so incredibly smooth. It's dynamic, it's powerful. We had it in some softer snow earlier this year, and then a nice spring day as well. And similar to the Bent 110, this just kind of took that performance to the next level where it's like just an incredibly capable carver and just busts right through the stuff. Like there is no hesitation.
Yeah, I mean, Bent 110 doesn't hold a candle to that for carving.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like the dampness and power of this ski really stand out, and the smoothness due to the longer effective edge is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And in powder, like because there's just a little bit more of a cambered profile, the ski is it's pushing down a little bit on the tips and tails, so it's not quite as drifty or smeary. I don't think that really precludes it from being like an awesome powder ski, but the fact that it does these other things so well make it point more towards a resort non-powder day.
Like, I think it's great in powder. I think it's a little bit ability level dependent. Yeah. Like if you were like kind of new to powder skiing and you were looking for your first ski in the 108, 110 range, I probably wouldn't point you to the Unleashed 108. But if you were like looking for a wider ski and wanted to, powder wasn't like the top of your priority, then it's a little bit of a different story. But you can just see it just on the wall with the shape, and like the big thing is kind of the lack of taper. Yeah. Where like, you know, something like the Sender Free 110 or a Bent, or a QST Blank or a Bent 110 would be easier powder skis.
There are narrower skis that float better than this.
Or at least narrower skis that are more agile in deep snow.
Yeah. Like I don't know if it was specifically this, but someone asked for this versus a QST 106. And I'm like, on a powder day, I'd rather a QST 106.
I would agree with you 100%.
It's slightly narrower, but not that much narrower, and certainly not narrower in the shovel, and nor with a powder-specific profile like the Salomon.
Yep.
So there are narrower skis that make better powder options, but I don't know if there's anything really of this width in a twin-tip shape that turns better than this. So
there kind of can't be.
It's just an absolute
This is like
blast.
the closest, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Are we moving on?
We can move on.
So next ski is this Rossignol Sender Free 110. It's a good progression from that Unleashed 108 because basically like everything that Bob was saying about carving performance, this doesn't do it quite as well. And then like the other side of that spectrum of the off-trail, the soft snow, the float, the powder, that's where this ski kind of starts to excel. So it's just kind of shifting the focus a little bit. And to me, this has always impressed me as just being an incredibly versatile, well-rounded 110 underfoot ski. You brought it up just now, we're talking about the Unleashed, Bob, but I believe last year when we did this exact same comparison, I talked about how this was just like a slightly more easygoing Enforcer 110. And I still feel that way. You know, of course, the Enforcer 110's gone, but it kind of like, it had a very, very similar shape. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was cool that like, those two skis were just like an excellent comparison to each other. And that's kind of where my thoughts and opinions of it started. And I've had so much fun on this ski on so many different days. Interestingly, I don't actually know that I skied it once this past season. And there were tons of situations where I like really wanted to, and it just like wasn't really there.
We got our fill last year. I remember the same thing. Like I had a ton of good days on it last year.
I skied it so much, yeah. But like the going out to Utah and skiing Deer Valley with Rossignol, multiple times.
Like, you got any of
I was
these?
like, is there a Sender Free 110 here anywhere?
Yeah.
And they were like, no, because we were skiing Sender Soul 102 and like
or an Arcade 84.
the new stuff. And I was like, I just want to ski like my favorite Rossignol ski. And I don't think I'm the only person out there that would say this is their favorite Rossignol ski. Like I was saying earlier in the video, it has such a strong following. It has a huge following in like the new school park world because of its shape that we'll look at in a little bit. And then it's like perfectly capable as like a big mountain, like soft snow kind of aggressive freeride ski too. And then you could put like a weekend warrior that wants a powder ski for Utah.
Yeah.
And like it works across that entire vast spectrum of different skiers.
Or here in Vermont, like that's
Totally.
like this is a great great ski for
It
that.
is objectively a really good ski, regardless of where you put it or who you put it on. So, anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves as usual. Poplar wood core in this ski. There's metal underfoot. There is carbon alloy matrix. There's air tip. There's nano top sheet.
I think there's damp tech too.
There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
there's rubber in like the tips and tails. So yeah, they kind of like just throw the kitchen sink at it. But Rossignol has a lot of really good construction techniques, so it's kind of cool. Every once in a while, when a company does that and just puts so much stuff in a ski, I'm like, oh, that's like probably unnecessary and a little bit overkill. But here it really works. It's not light, so it's 2,300 grams. This is the 184, so it's also like this isn't like a short length, but there's some heft to this ski, and you see it in the flex pattern too. Like it is pretty stiff, so it's kind of important, I think, that it has that weight and it has that stiffer flex, because that's where you're getting the power and the stability side of its performance. And then the shape is where you get all the playfulness. So a lot of tip rocker up here. There's not like crazy early taper like we used to see in like Soul 7 or something like that, but it's got a nice kind of straight cut to it. Good amount of camber underfoot. I don't think there's anything like crazy about the camber. It's not super, super high. It's not crazy stiff. And then I think it's really important that it has this much tail rocker. And that's something that I have always been really excited about because it does have like more of a twin tippy freestyle shape. And I think if it didn't have this much tail rocker, it wouldn't be nearly as fun or nearly as good for such a wide range of skiers. And it's kind of interesting, and I don't know that I've talked to Rossignol directly about this, but I would be interested in your response to this, Bob. The Sender Soul 102 has soul in its name, as like a nod to it capturing Soul 7 performance. I would at least be interested to present the argument that this captures more Soul 7 in a very different way. But having that much tail rocker, to me, makes it really easy to ski in soft snow and tight terrain, and that's something that the Soul 7 always did really well. It's way more ski.
Yeah.
It is completely different, but it does, I sometimes feel like it's capturing some of that.
Well, I think that we won't be the first to bring up that the naming from Rossignol is odd, and that
Can be confusing, at least.
what they had before, Sky, Soul, Super,
Yeah.
could basically be added to the numbers. So Sky 92, Soul 102, Super 110.
Sure.
Like those are, like that's kind of
Yeah.
lines up with, and the Super was a bit wider, I think.
What is the
but-
118? Yeah, that would be the 118.
Yeah, but it kind of fits in with kind of the character of the ski. And I think that they've done a great job with this thing specifically, and that the 102 is very much a complement on the more versatile side of the spectrum.
Yeah,
But, like,
narrower, more all-mountain feel,
Yeah.
flatter tail.
but this thing is just, it's a different animal in terms of that construction and in terms of the power.
It's
Like,
way more powerful.
way more powerful.
It's really like the only reason that my mind sometimes goes to Soul 7 is how easy it is in soft snow.
Yeah.
That's like the only reason. And I think like depending on the skier and depending on the snow conditions, there are certain situations where this is easier to ski than a Sender Soul 102.
Yeah. And then we have that Sender 106 Ti Plus, which
Right.
like at the longer lengths is 108 underfoot.
Right.
And that would fit great
Way over there.
here.
Yeah.
And so I think that ski now then presents a nice kind of complement to that in terms of directional performance.
Yep.
While retaining like that same burly build.
Yep. Really good ski.
Yeah, and I remember having a really great day in the woods here on
Yeah.
this ski and thinking, you know, for that 2,300 grams, stiff flex, this thing is really fun and agile.
That's the only ski that's ever cleared my Freddy's gap.
Oh yeah.
Remember when I started trying to do that on,
Here, you do that.
I think I tried it on some Armadas, and
Yeah. Well, you got to get the speed going.
that was the ski that did it.
Yeah.
Hope that jump forms again this year. Is a good one.
Yeah, just can't snow too much. That's
It's
what we
like,
learned.
yeah, you have to
Has the perfect amount
You
of
have to-
snow.
because it has to work in, I think it's a stump under there or something. I don't know.
Anyway, second Dynastar on the wall. This
Yeah.
is the new M-Free 112. So I think between the 108 and the 112, we're seeing nice moves from Dynastar in their M-Free world. Basically, this one replaces the outgoing 118. Was it 118 or 116?
You're putting, I think, 118.
Okay, either one. So this is now the wider of the M-Free series of skis, and pretty interesting to complement it against the 108. You know, it's only a 4 millimeter difference, but you're really just getting that extra level of stability overall and added flotation.
Yeah, it's that same, just like more material.
Yeah, more material, just ups that performance level just a bit. Same construction, so hybrid core 2.0 in this ski. Don't need to go over that again. Just really does a great job of being smooth and quiet, especially with that polyurethane. And I kind of want to see if you would hand me that 108 there.
Or for a weight comparison?
Well, I just want to I don't think we've had both of these skis in our hands at the same time. So I know it's heavier. So 2,364 grams in this 112 here. And then looking at the profile, this one, the 112 is a flatter overall look. The 108 does bow out more, so more dramatic rocker in the 108, especially in the tip, and then in the tail, pretty similar. I would say that this 112 is a little bit more dramatic, and the 108 here is slightly more flat. So more overall tail splay in the 112, but the tip shape is a little bit flatter in the 112. So I think what that's doing, I can give you back this 108 here, is just creating that softer snow mentality, keeping the splay down a little bit, making the ski surfier and smearier, not quite as porpoising,
Yep.
and then allowing it to get sideways easier. So we kind of talked about that positive camber in the 108. This is a little bit lower, and again, a little bit better for those sideways activities. But the tail, this is where we see a bigger difference here. Just more splay and longer rocker than in that 108. So that is going to emphasize that softer snow performance and just easier to throw sideways, even though it's a little bit heftier, but a little bit more flexible too.
I anticipate a strong Freeride World Tour presence for that ski.
Yeah. I always like to think about the people that sit in Chamonix and look at the mountains and say, what's the best ski to get from there to here? And
Yeah, that's got to be one of them.
that's got to be one of them.
Which makes sense, because that's where Dynastar
Yeah.
makes their skis. Or
Yeah.
At least that's where they're based.
Yeah, you use your backyard for inspiration, and I
Yeah.
think that this ski fits that very well. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot of pro athletes and team riders on this 112, and I think that a lot of skiers looking for like a smooth, powerful yet playful twin will fall in line here. I mean, it's
Pretty similar progression, yeah.
is similar to this 110, although the sound is different. Like this is just a quieter build. That polyurethane does such a good job of just of silencing and smoothing out vibrations, and having it be a quieter ski. The Rossignol just has a little bit higher of a
Yeah.
din to it.
Yep.
But really interesting to see Dynastar's new progression here, 108 and 112 with the new constructions. I think that that's going to make this thing stand out, especially in kind of that bigger mountain crowd.
Yep.
Yeah, nice sound to that ski.
You're right. A lot of vibration damping.
And similar to this one as well.
Yeah, like similar accomplishment through different means. There's no plastic in this ski. Well, I guess there's double ABS sidewall. Does that count? That kind of counts.
Ooh, plastic in all of these.
Yeah. So this is the QST Blank from Salomon. This thing's huge.
Yeah, gentleman's 194.
Not this gentleman's 194. I'm not. No, thank you. But you skied this length at Alta.
Yep.
And we'll put in a bunch of Alta footage. So this is a fantastic ski. I mean, I think it is one of the best powder skis, you know, like resort powder skis. A lot of these other skis that we've talked about so far can lean slightly in one direction or the other. QST Blank, to me, it doesn't even lean there. It just falls into like,
it plants
this is a
itself
powder
there.
ski,
Yeah.
and it's so fun. It is kind of unique. I think like its shape is one of the more unique things about it, so we can look at that in a second. Before we do, there's poplar in the wood core. We get CFX. They don't call it superfiber anymore, but I still want to call it CFX.
You can call it superfiber if you
Okay.
want.
And we get cork damplifiers in the tips and tails, and then we get that double sidewall feature underfoot. Very, very consistent with construction that we see across the board in QST, with the exception of Echo and X. 2,350 grams on our scale here, which I'd say for a 194 is not too bad.
Not too bad.
It's not the lightest ski in the world, but it's certainly not the heaviest ski either. And then just like a really nice kind of moderate flex pattern. There's nothing crazy about the ski's flex or weight. You know, I think like the interesting things start to come from shape. So lot of tip rocker. The fact that it's a 194 is kind of probably making it look like even more than it actually is compared to some of these skis. But among the most tip rocker, at least from a length perspective, not necessarily from splay. There is camber underfoot, but there's not that much of it. And then super, super long tail rocker. So again, like some of the longest tail rocker that we've seen up here. You might be thinking that nothing I've said so far is too crazy for shape, and like this isn't going to sound too crazy either, partly because it's the long one, so it gets a long radius. It's an 18-meter turn radius, and the QST Blank has always basically had like the shortest turn radius in this entire category. And for some people, I've definitely seen this reaction through comments and feedback and discussions, and it's from people who haven't skied it. Mm-hmm. But some people just like completely rule it out because of the short turn radius. And they're like, I don't want that. I need a 22 or higher radius. And it in powder, it skis like it has a longer turn radius. Like it's so fun. It's so slashy and drifty and fun, where like typically when I think about a shorter turn radius, I think about it kind of being like almost like sort of twitchy in deep snow, like hooking up when you don't want it to and like trying to make round turns. This truly will let you make whatever turn you want. The kind of the only time that you feel that shorter turn radius is when you like happen to be on a cat track going back to the lift.
And then it's really fun.
And then it's like
turn on.
And then it's really fun. Yeah. So it's like it's a phenomenal powder ski, but somehow Salomon also captured this like pretty darn impressive ability on firmer snow too. And I just think this thing is so much fun. I mean, when we were in Alta, like I love skiing that QST X. It's great, and it has a lot of things about it are or can be more enjoyable in soft snow than this. Yeah. But there were multiple times on that trip kind of cycling through the 106 and the Blank and the QST-X where in the back of my mind I was like, if I just skied the Blank the whole time,
be fine.
I'd be totally fine. Yeah. And there were times on the 106 and the X where I specifically was like, I kind of prefer being on the Blank.
Yeah.
You know, on the 106, it's like if you're in really deep snow, you're like, I'd rather have the Blank.
Right.
And then the opposite on the X, if you're on like firmer snow, you're like, oh, the Blank would handle this
Right.
really well. So it's such a good ski. And this is another one that has really earned a strong following, and for good reason.
It's an interesting contrast to the DPS over there, the other ski with a notably short turn radius.
Yeah, sure.
And just how they, like you mentioned, like how they differ is that this one is amenable to those different turn shapes and styles.
Yeah, this one's kind of not.
Whereas that one's not.
Yeah.
And I think the construction has a lot to do with it, where this is just the denser,
A little burlier.
burlier build, and that one's more precise. And you had mentioned twitchy. I don't find that ski to be twitchy on anything other than soft snow, but this one is like so far from twitchy.
Yeah, and like twitchy's probably not the best. Eager.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like twitchy. It's just like, it's a little bit too like exuberant.
I think we could
Like, just calm down.
I think we could do a brisk business of just coming up with euphemisms for bad ski words. And you know, this, I think the Blank is just a great example, like you were saying, and I agree 100%. Like, there's so many skis that you're out on and you're saying, I wish I had a little bit more width or a little bit more power or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And in soft snow, most of those signs will point to this Blank.
Yeah.
It just is a very comprehensive soft snow ski.
Yeah, really good.
And then ever since we first got on it, even just skiing a straight up firm groomer here at Stowe, like there's a 112 should not be able to turn like this.
Yeah.
But it's an extraordinarily rewarding carving ski.
No, I remember like the first time we ever skied it, our rep Mike was like, wait till you ski it on groomers.
Right.
And I was like,
I don't think so.
like that sounds pretty stupid. Like, why would I do that? And then I was like, whoa, what did you guys do here? But like, it's so fun in soft snow that I can't get too hung up on how good it is on a groomer, even though it is good. So it's just an objectively good ski.
And I really like this 194. I thought that.
Yeah, I was glad that you got your hands on that out in Alta, and I was also glad that I didn't have to ski it. But Emily skied like the
176 or something?
178 might be.
Yeah, she was fine.
And like that's basically the equivalent of me skiing the 194. So I probably could do it. I just
don't want to.
Yeah.
The Rustler series has been basically the bane of our comparison series existence here from a width perspective, because in the longer length they go up a few millimeters. I had the 188 up here.
We put the Rustler 10 in 2.
Yeah.
It's the first ski that ever went in 2.
So you weren't here for this, but I had the 188 up here, and then I realized that it was 114, and I went down and swapped it out with this 188 112.
Good job.
Because the 9 and the 10 have both been on the cusp, and we've had to finagle it one way or another. But Rustler 11 here from Blizzard. This is a carryover ski. In the 180, we're at 1,939 grams. That 188 at 114 is going to be a little bit heavier. But this ski, as well as the other Rustler skis, follow the same construction where we're dealing with a true blend Freeride wood core. We do get these beach stringers through the middle, and then more poplar as we get to the sides. And that just keeps the ski a little bit lighter and more maneuverable. And then flex form technology, really interesting as we work through the Rustler line. We don't talk about it as much, but the metal arms that comprise the frame get narrower as the skis get wider. So in the 9, the metal arms take up more of the ski, more percentage of the width of the ski. And then as we get to the 10 and the 11, they get narrower, culminating in this 11 having the narrowest. So yeah, there's metal in here, full width underfoot, but the arms, it's a lot less. So construction-wise, they are putting an emphasis on mobility and agility as opposed to kind of more firm snow performance.
Kind of similar to like the placement of the PU on the M-Frees. Just put it along the edge so it's a little bit damper.
Yeah. So for a 112, this is getting some nice precision to the edge, but then it also retains that Rustler flex that is extraordinarily smooth and predictable, as well as kind of a more splayed shape. So this is one of those skis that when it's lying on the wall, the tip just sticks out more. So there's more kind of vertical space between the tips and the tails. And with that, I'm probably the most splay on this wall. Maybe that DPS has it, but...
Yeah, I bet DPS has it by a tiny bit, but maybe second most splay.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing for a ski in this range, because what that's making it do is just stay right on top. So if you're getting in deeper snow, this thing is definitely going to have more pop to it. And it is able to be more playful and more smeary. There's not like a ton of camber underfoot, and that tail rocker's nice and long, so you can let this thing get loose and playful and creative. But I don't think that that's really the defining characteristic. I think that this tip splay really makes this thing stand out from other skis on the wall in terms of it just popping out of the snow. So you get that nice pop out of the tip, kind of the opposite of what we talked about, like where like a ZX has pop out of the tail.
Yeah,
this
totally
thing has pop out of the tip.
Yeah.
And that's going to fit a lot of skiers really well, especially those that are kind of looking for more energy out of their wider ski. But just a really good option. We see a lot of these here in Stowe. This is like a popular tree ski for around here because of, I don't know if it's because of this or people just end up liking it because of
there's a lot of
kind of that tip
Blizzard
splay
fans around here for good reason.
Yeah.
It's one of those skis that like it's wiggly enough for tight trees around here, but then it feels okay on firm snow.
Yeah.
Like it's not like jittery.
No, and the older, the older Rustler 11, I was pretty shocked at how well that thing carved on groomers.
Yeah, this is better.
This is, I think that this, having the metal along the edges does make it easier to maintain that edge contact. 19 meters through the turn radius, which pretty average for this stuff. It is a turny ski. Like it does enjoy turning, and we've noticed that with all the Rustlers, nice, clean, kind of consistent mid-radius turns. But nothing overly crazy about it when it comes to flotation or upper level performance. I think this ski, like the other Rustlers, is right down the middle in a lot of attributes. And that's kind of its strength, is its versatility and well-rounded nature.
I agree 100%. Reminds me a lot of like Sender Free 110, those other skis that feel like they can do a little bit of everything. I was over in Austria with Blizzard. Got to see some of these things being built in their factory, which was really cool. We also had Marcus Kasten on that trip, who's a phenomenal skier. And I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly. A couple times I asked him what his favorite Blizzard ski was, which put him on the spot a little bit. I don't know that he was anticipating that question. And Rustler 11, there were two. It was like 0G85 and Rustler 11. And I just thought that was really interesting. But he just talked so highly of that ski and all the different things he can do on it. And I thought that was really cool.
He had a video, I'm pretty sure it was like him just skiing in inbounds at Snowbird.
On straight skis?
Or on these.
Oh, yeah. Yep,
and,
sure.
Obviously
Alta, I think.
as a professional skier, like the ski is secondary, but
correct.
Also just watching what this thing could do, I think was really impressive. Like bumps, trees, really technical, tight, steep stuff. Like all of those aspects, this could do really well, and like somewhat light.
Not crazy heavy.
Other than this core that we're going to see, we're not going to really talk about lightweight anymore as any type of contributing factor.
Yep. Next up is this Head Core 111, so another light ski. I'm excited to see what it comes out to on the scale. Combination of Karuba and Poplar in its core, and then of course these are very carbon-based, so yeah, it's even lighter than I thought. What length do I have here? 184? Yeah, so 1,800 grams in this 184. So is it the lightest ski up here, period? No, something over here was, it's close.
It's close.
It might be the lightest ski on this wall. If not, it's like tied. Now it just went down, 1790 now.
Here, put yours on the scale. I'll trade.
Oh, okay. We'll see if there's
See if there's a difference.
Plus or minus. I feel like manufacturers always say plus or minus 50. Yeah, kind of.
1850, 1860?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus or minus 50 grams. So this is the Core 111. It's very light. It's also very stiff. So that's something that's true with all core skis. Is this the stiffest ski up here?
Maybe the Mantra.
Actually, I think that Dynastar is stiffer.
I mean, we'll get to it, but this is actually
okay, never mind.
It's different flex.
Fair enough. So yeah, very light, very stiff. We've talked about that with head cores all the time, is how when you have a ski that's very light and very stiff, it becomes very reactive and very energetic. And that is definitely still true about this Core 111. It's also, Bob, and you know this, it's one of my favorite cores because it's not as reactive as some of them.
Right.
So this ski, in my opinion, and I think this is true and consistent for other skiers as well, just with the increased surface area, it feels a little bit looser. So I find it easier to release the tail edge to get the ski to kind of pivot and smear when I need it to. And it just it feels a little bit more compliant for me and how I like to ski. And I think those things that work well for me also translate to it being an actually very good powder ski, because it is looser and easier to just flick in soft snow, where I've never said that the Core 99 is easy to flick.
Yeah.
For me, it starts around the 105, and then the 111 really starts to be easier. But not much rocker in this ski, really, at all. That's tip rocker. Yes, that's rocker, but compared to most other things up here, it's not much. Really long camber in this ski, so probably the longest camber length that we've seen. And then it's not much tail rocker, but compared to narrower cores, it's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of its versatility or ability to release the tail edge in soft snow is coming from. The other place that I think it's helpful, not necessarily coming from here, but it is a 21.1 meter turn radius. So it doesn't feel like it's trying to turn when you don't want it to turn. And that it just makes me sound so lazy when I say that. But that's how I feel on this ski, is I can throw it sideways and let it stay sideways for a little bit, and it doesn't fight it. So it does it has all the other benefits of head cores, is it's reactive and it's energetic, and you can push it pretty darn hard, and you can ski it at a high edge angle and make big sweeping turns. But kind of differing from most cores, I feel like you can get into soft snow and get into tight terrain and be kind of playful on it.
I am so sold on this ski.
Well, I know that.
I think it's awesome. And I also don't think it's an every person's ski. I think that this one I
still wouldn't want to own it.
Right. I would want to own it.
I'm just saying I like it more than other cores.
Than other cores. I think that as much as the core skis in general are kind of, I don't want to say an acquired taste, but they're
polarizing.
But they're unique. They're different than other skis out there. And then this 111 ratchets it up a notch. When you make that 99 to 105 break, you're moving into the more freeride aspect in terms of taper and rocker.
Yeah.
And then 105 to 111, all of a sudden, like you were saying, you get the more material and the capability of making a higher edge angle, and you're getting that reactivity that's accessible because it's light.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you're looking at a very, very interesting ski.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
And I have had more success on that in carving a clean turn than pretty much anything else on this wall.
No, Unleashed 108?
I said pretty much anything,
Oh, okay.
and I looked right at that. But it does a great job of skipping over broken snow and crud.
Doesn't get deflected.
No, and you would
There's
think
enough
it does.
mass here.
Yeah.
That's I think some of the narrower cores can.
Yeah.
Like the 93 for me, that's the one that gets deflected.
Yeah.
The 87 gets deflected, but I don't even care.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, sure, go wherever you want.
Yeah, I'll be in my next turn in 0.2 seconds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's like that middle section for
Yeah.
me can be tricky.
No, but I've let that thing run straight and fast and really got it up on a high edge angle, and
Yeah.
it is like as rewarding of a ski experience as you're going to find, because it is so precise and so reactive, and you just don't expect that type of energy out of such a wide ski. Normally if you're in something wide and somewhat, why can't I get that playful, like it's going to bend and flex and move, and that thing just stays like right on its line.
Right.
And that's the most impressive thing about that. And I do think that there's a weight component, like your weight and ability to satisfaction in a core ratios are very particular.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
yeah, I love that thing. I think that like for any type of soft snow, even bordering on firm, this is super clean.
It's a really good ski.
Yeah.
I mean, all the cores are. They're like you said, they're unique.
Yeah. We've got a lot of new skis in this range.
Yeah,
Jeff.
This one's new.
This is a new Declivity X108 from Armada, and we have had really good experiences on the older 108 Ti, and there's some differences, but overall it's the similar range.
Do you think the 108 is more similar to the 108 than the 102 to the 102?
I think the 102s are more different.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Declivity, once you hit 102 for this year, it goes to X 102 and 108. And basically what that's signifying is a different articulated titanal band. This 108, like all of the Armada skis for this year, now moved to a poplar wood core, increasing the smoothness, kind of the silence of the ski is increased. Without the Karuba, I think there's a little bit less like just pop, but with the 102 and 108X series, I think it's warranted, especially as you're getting more of a soft snow focus. So a shorter metal laminate that still has that articulated titanal banding in it, so milled out of the metal and replaced with elastomer material, and that allows the ski to just be smoother and quieter and able to flex torsionally and kind of, if you think about a ski on edge, one side's moving up, one side's moving down. This just makes it quieter and damper overall. So the articulated band X in this ski refer to just that shorter metal laminate, but it still keeps the same properties. And then that's the lower metal is balanced with the move to poplar wood. So those are differences in construction. In terms of shape, it's a narrower shovel. I just looked it up. Well, hopefully I didn't kick that down.
No, you're good.
It's like 8 millimeters narrower in the shovel than it used to be. So it's much
pointier.
Yeah, it's a much straighter tip shape, and that's going to increase the turn radius. So this is the 184. We're at 24 meters. I think I skied the 191 earlier this year, and that's 26 meters. What I really like about this ski is its ability to float, but also perform when it finds the bottom. And we deal with that a lot around here in Vermont, where we do get snow, but it is normally on top of something that is a little firmer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time when we do get snowy days, you are going to find the bottom, and having something that has that stability and power to be predictable in those areas and have that smoothness underfoot is a huge plus. So if you're on something that's lighter, I'm just going to use the Playmaker 111 as an example. If you cut through that snow and get to the bottom, that ski is going to get deflected more than something like this Declivity 108. So having something...
Don't you dare say bad things about... No, I'm kidding.
Well, the nice thing about that is that you'll generally stay on top. Like this thing,
that's a good point.
A little bit heavier. It's not too heavy, 2,080 grams. So it's a little bit heavier, but it just feels more stable and secure, especially when you find that firmer snow underneath. It is interesting. It does ski like it has a long turn radius. So it's not like your Corvus over there at 25 that feels like you can tighten it up.
I agree. 100%.
This thing is one of those skis that if you just tip it on edge and don't lean into it, you're just going to fall over.
Yep.
So you got to be prepared for that. It is a little bit of an outlier. It's always interesting that, a blank can sit here and, that's the thing that you tip up and it comes around, whereas this has the opposite effect.
Yep.
I like to think about it like you're skiing. You have to ski it somewhat two-footed. So kind of using these two skis as a singular platform, whereas a ski like the Blank, you can alter feet a little bit easier, if that makes sense.
You know where I want to ski it? I don't think you've ever skied here. We've had this conversation before. Mammoth.
You think this is a good Mammoth ski?
Yep. Like heavier snowpack.
Snow, short.
That Sierra cement, which
Yep.
like snow can still be really good out there, but typically has higher moisture content. That ski is like stout enough that it can
Yeah.
handle it, and then the rocker profile still lets you release. And Mammoth has so many just like open zones,
Yeah.
or like where you're like maybe you're like doing a couple technical things or like hitting a cliff, and then you have like 700 vertical feet of run out.
Yeah.
And like the easiest thing to do is kind of just go straight, and like that ski can handle those things really well.
I do think, in my experience with the older Declivity 108, that this new one is less of that it's less of that full-on powerful ski.
Yeah, I agree. It
Like-
still has some of it.
Yeah.
I think it's like a much better combination now.
Yeah.
Of it still accomplishes enough of that straight line stability, but it's more useful
Yeah.
in other zones.
Yeah, but it does have that really straight, like that very, very long and gradual taper. Like it's just straight. Like
Yeah.
it's really a fun shape, but a very long rocker profile in the shovel. And then somewhat of a directional tail here. There is rocker, but it's nothing crazy. But yeah, really, really fun. We were fortunate enough to get on this thing in those soft snow days, and yeah, smooth as silk.
Yeah.
Like just buttery, quiet,
Yeah.
and smooth and fun.
Both in its construction and its shape. It's
Yeah.
just very smooth. It's
No.
not quick.
No, but it's quick enough. Like you can get it to. Like I
Yeah,
didn't have any problem putting it where I wanted it to, even in the longer length.
Yeah.
Which I thought was impressive.
Next ski is a pretty strong one. This is the K2 Mindbender 108 Ti. God, this ski's been around for a while now. It's 5 years?
Yeah, and just
6
like
years? 2 years with this version? 3 years with this version?
I think
3.
this is the third year with this new Y frame. But the 108 Ti has been around for a while.
Yeah, we've been talking about this ski for a while. I really like the most recent changes. I do think it kind of made the ski a little bit more dynamic, but it's pretty darn chargy. So this ski has an Aspen wood core, and then it's got Titanal Y beam, and that's basically what was tweaked in the last time that they changed anything about it. But it's kind of like tuning fork style shape up here in the forebody of the ski, full width underfoot, and then it used to just run straight through the tail, and now it runs straight through the middle of the tail and then bows out or kind of bulbs out or
Hexagons out.
hexagons out into this wider section back here in the tail. 2,230 grams in this ski, so it's not the heaviest thing up here, but it's certainly not light. This is the 186, and then it's pretty darn stiff too. So it's kind of a lot of ski. And something that I was just looking at, Bob, I don't remember what you were talking about. I was over here just daydreaming,
In your own head.
doing my own thing. But there's a lot of brands with two skis on this wall. And something that was really interesting to me is from Elan, we've got Playmaker and Ripstick, and they're pretty close
Yeah.
on the wall. There's only two skis in between them. We've got Reckner 110 and Mindbender 108 Ti, and they almost couldn't be further apart from each other, and that is like 100% reflective of their performance. This ski is a directional kind of big mountain charger where that Reckner is twin tip, playful, freestyle influence. So just very, very different, and I think that's kind of interesting. Looking at the shape here, good amount of tip rocker up here, not a lot of splay, but kind of nice to have that tip rocker because it's kind of keeping the ski from diving. It's planing out whether you're in fresh snow or you're in chopped up snow. And I would actually, this ski's kind of interesting because I would say it actually is a little better in the chopped up snow. And that's kind of where this shape is really, really working well, is kind of keeping you on top of things, but still in connection with the snow surface, because you're probably going kind of fast.
Yeah, you got to, like, this is a very engaging ski.
Right.
Yeah, you really
you got to like pay attention to what you're doing.
Yep.
There is camber underfoot, not much camber height, and then the tail, there's rocker length back here, but it's so flat that it almost might as well not be there. You have to be skiing a really, really flat edge angle to get any kind of wiggle or any kind of maneuverability out of it. This one, are they not going to give me a turn radius?
You might have a sticker on the back of one.
I probably do have a sticker on the back of it. I kind of like when companies don't put turn radius on it. 22.8.
Yeah, long.
I was going to guess 22. Yeah. So pretty, directional shape, long turn radius, burly build, and if you want a ski to just ski really fast on, get a Mindbender 108 Ti. You should just also have the understanding that it's not going to feel particularly playful
or gentle.
Yeah,
like it's a pretty rough ride if you're not. Yeah, if you're not driving it. Actively, it's a pretty rough ride.
It'll beat you up a little bit. I mean, the next two skis will too, and that's fine. Like skis, it's awesome that skis like this exist because there are skiers and athletes out there that demand it and need it. So it's awesome that we have it, but it's certainly not for everybody.
No, and that's part of the reason why they introduced that 106C to the Mindbender line. They're like,
way better for most people.
And like that 108 Ti was really they were pushing that for a while, and we saw it here. Like we just didn't sell a ton of them. Yeah. And then the 106s came along, and they're a friendlier but still very playful and active ski. Yeah. And it just is a better fit for those that aren't just full on 100% sending it. Yeah. It was like the different generation, the first generation, but this might have been one of our first like long form reviews of like Mindbender 108 Ti. Yeah. It wasn't, but it was among the first. Do you remember skiing like? You were filming. It was probably one of the first times you filmed at Spruce.
At Spruce, that scary. Like tight that top section. Yep. And I was like, let's go ski that. And I was on this and like immediately regretted it. Yeah. And was like, this is not what this ski is meant for. Like, what have I done here? And we survived, but because we're here. If we hadn't, the comparison videos wouldn't exist if we hadn't survived that situation. But yeah, it's a lot of ski. There are skiers that it's going to be awesome for. You probably know. It's kind of like one of those skis that if you have to ask, it's probably not for you. Yeah, you probably know that you're really good at skiing and really strong. And if you're really curious, you can size down. Like this is one of those ones that I wouldn't want to ski it in that length. No, and me either. Actually, the 179 in this, and similar to conversations we have with like a Volkl Mantra 102 or an Enforcer 104, like this, like the build is there where you can size down and take advantage of a better turn shape for what you're doing. That's a good point. But yeah, I skied this in the 179 on our spring day here for K2 Media Day, and it was awesome. Like in that soft snow, soft spring snow, like, and like on groomers where it's like you don't have to worry about hitting stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it is unflappable, as are these next two skis, which is fun to get into this section here. Yeah, this thing's ridiculous. This is a Dynastar M-Pro 108. I like this ski because it comes in a 182 or a 192. It's just one of those skis that is very specific, so they don't make it in lots of different lengths. Yeah, like if you want a 175, you need not apply. Right. Yeah, there's it's like a speed minimum on the highway. Yeah.
2,439 grams here in the 192. Where this thing differs from the other skis in Dynastar's line, specifically M-Pro, is that they use a beech wood core instead of a poplar wood core. They still have the polyurethane along the sides, but having that denser beech wood in the middle really gives it more of that race influence. So full, that full solid wood core really comes alive in this ski here. And then the PU, and then we get their Titanal rocket frame technology that we see in the other M-Pro skis. This one is kind of more of the old school style. The new M-Pros are a little bit shorter and more H-shaped. This one keeps a more full metal laminate going almost all the way back to the end. Like if you think about an older M-Pro 99, the metal went back a little bit farther just because that's more of a resort-oriented ski. This thing is more firmly entrenched in the big mountain realm, so they can give it a little bit of a break, especially due to kind of the robustness of the wood core. But you had mentioned the stiffness, and like it's a different level of stiff. If you're putting that next to a Core 105,
111.
Oh, sorry, 111. Yeah, like the core is stiffer.
Did you get the weight?
20, yeah, it's 1,000,000 grams.
Yeah.
It's an interesting flex, but
It's still there's just like a lot.
yeah. And that's the point, is that this is meant for high-speed, big mountain charging. Like there's no way around it. 22 meters in the turn radius, which I think is interesting. It's a little bit shorter than some of the other skis that we have up here. But I don't think you're going to find a 22-meter turn radius. I think that most people are going to be using this in a
40.
much more fall line activity like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a downhill ski, but for big mountain skiing.
Yeah.
But
Like you were saying about like what's the ski that gets us from the top of Chamonix to the bottom the quickest.
Yeah.
That one's the quickest. These would just be a little bit more fun.
Yeah, you could kind of mosey your way down on the M-Free 112, whereas the M-Pro 108 Ti is much more business-like in its application. But yeah, this is definitely very athlete influenced and very, pro model oriented. So you are seeing that higher end of skier that's really kind of, I would say, just like funneled into this thing.
Yeah.
It's one of the, kind of like you were saying about the K2, it's not something that that might pop up in a discussion. It's like, I'm seeking this ski for this specific purpose.
Yeah.
And that's where this thing comes in handy.
How many do you think they sell?
25.
I was going to say 12.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly just.
It's like one of those skis that I bet they give more away to athletes than sell.
Yeah.
Which are like, I love that skis like that exist.
Right.
And I hope that skis like that always exist. But that just like kind of reflects its application.
Yeah. But this is one of those ones that that on that camera angle that you're talking about, like you're gonna see.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna see this movement.
Yeah.
But
you wouldn't feel it.
You don't feel it on your feet.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, just a testament to the power and just the high-end construction and engineering.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice long tail tip rocker here, good splay.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of taper going
No,
on.
and then just like a flat tail, basically.
Pretty flat tail. Yeah, so that's gonna just deliver smoothness and power to the edges.
Yep.
But nice, it's a good example of like a different build and how skis can kind of take on a different character.
Yeah.
And like
There's some similarities to this thing.
yeah, and if you wanted to, you didn't like where I put the Reckoner, but you didn't have much to say about these two. Like I feel like you could make a call here either way.
For me, it's like something to do with the sound that this ski makes and its precision.
Yeah.
That's where I didn't fully disagree. Because I would say that like this is probably the most precise ski on this wall, period. And you could like maybe like bring up like DPS as an interesting argument, but just like the way that this ski reacts is true Volkl precision.
But your precision comes at a cost, or a caveat is of speed, where like if you're anywhere below 30 miles an hour, it's not that precise. But if you get
can't,
going,
you can't ski that slow on this
Yeah.
ski. No.
I've tried. It's horrible.
I think it's more like 45
Yeah.
is where it starts to come alive. So anyways, this is a new ski.
Ish.
It's not. So this is the old Katana 108 that is now the Mantra 108. So basically just everything is Mantra now, or at least Kendo and Katana are now.
Yeah.
Except for Katana V-Works, that still exists.
Yeah.
So a little bit confusing. But this is the Mantra 108. It did not change like the M7, so similar to the Mantra 102 or the Mantra 88. Those skis carry forward with no construction changes. So multi-layer wood core, and then this Titanal frame, and then we have layer of metal underfoot, and it's like the early Titanal frame.
Yeah.
There's nothing tailored about it.
No, and
it's
I
just big and thick.
I learned something new where the frame pieces are 0.7 and the underfoot piece is 0.3. So if you look at it...
I knew that they were thicker. I didn't know exactly the thickness.
Yeah, no, I learned that just yesterday.
Fun.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. You learn something new every day. Pretty darn heavy. It's almost 2,400 grams. It's 2,375. And then also pretty darn stiff. Probably like a little bit stiffer than that M-Pro.
I would say it is, yeah.
Pretty similar overall.
And more so in the shovel.
Yeah. It's also like really thick. I know this never like comes across on camera, but like the core thickness, like right here, is like kind of ridiculous. And then it's very flat overall. Like there is camber rocker, but not much of any of those things. So that's where rocker starts, and there's not much splay. Camber underfoot, but like what, 2 millimeter, a millimeter of camber height?
Yeah, I mean, all Volkl skis are kind of
just
in
flat.
in that realm. Yeah.
And then there's tail rocker back here, but again, there's like almost no splay. The interesting thing about this ski is the shape. So this is 3D radius side cut. It is 39 in the shovel, 19 underfoot, and 34 in the tail. And similar to what you were saying about that M-Pro 108 Ti, good luck finding the 19.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could say, like, let's average them. Let's add them up, divide by 3.
I was going to say it's like 30, 32. Yeah. That's kind of what it feels like to me.
That's where it's happiest.
Yeah.
Like, that. If you want to get a 19 out of that, you got to jam it.
Yeah. I was reading something. I don't remember where this was. It was some sort of forum or social media comment thread or something like that. And somebody was like, why doesn't Volkl, like, tell you more about the Katana? It was when it was still Katana.
Yeah.
And somebody replied and was like, well, because they don't really want you to buy it.
Right.
Like, if they put more attention to it, then, like, more people would buy it than should buy it. And this is it's just another one of those skis where, like, if you have to ask if it's right for you, chances are the answer is no. Please, I still ask anyways, and the answer might be right, but you probably know. You know, if you're like, I like skiing 60 miles an hour through choppy, ungroomed snow conditions, you don't have many choices, and you probably know what those choices are for the best skis for you.
Yeah, you just need a very specific priority list to end up here.
Yeah, but not going to be playful. It's not going to be agile and tight terrain. If you're a really good skier, it could work pretty darn well in like technical big mountain terrain, like tight chutes and couloirs and stuff like that. But with the caveat of you need to be a pretty good skier.
Yeah.
Or a very good skier. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty one-dimensional, I would say. I would say even that M-Pro is a little bit more versatile, but it's the perfect ski to end with for this comparison.
Yeah, and I don't think either of these two skis on the end have much of a place here on the east coast of the United States. I think
no
you
thanks.
need more real estate and more room to run.
Basically like nosedive is the only place I would... Nosedive at Stowe could be fun.
Yeah.
You got to like get down the S-turns and you're going like 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, be great.
Like, so fun one to end on, and like similar color.
Right, did we end in pink?
But really
land?
couldn't be more different.
No.
So kind of fun to the extremities of the wall here are very, very different. And that's it. Bob, you got anything else?
No, I just always like seeing the vast differences in ski style and application on this.
Yeah, this is
on this wall.
this is a fun category for sure. We will go one wider than this, so we'll go into like 120-ish, probably like one. It'll be basically 114 up.
Yeah.
And we'll basically include like as many skis as we can. But I always think that like when you bump up to the next width for category, there are less differences than in this one.
Yeah.
This one still has a lot of differences. So that's it. Let us know if you have any questions as usual, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.